All right, guys, how's it going? Welcome to part 2 of this little engagement series I'm throwing together. And part 1, just to recap, we taught the dog that their attention to us is what triggers play. It's what triggers interaction from us in the form of play. Now, there's 3 different ways to go about doing that I showed you in the previous video, and that is tug, food chase games, or fetch. And actually, I didn't show you the fetch one, but I'm going to in this video. And then I showed you another method where instead of playing with the dog and interacting with the dog, you just reward them with food. And that method works really well for extremely food motivated dogs. And I'm gonna see if I can cover all of those for you, but with the next steps in mind. And really, once the dog understands that it's their attention that triggers play, then you're ready to layer on distractions. So I've got a few daycare dogs over here hoping that they will cooperate and come to the fence line a little bit so I can show you how this works. But the game, the idea is the exact same, where all you're going to do is wait for the dog to pay attention to you and not the distractions. And when they do, you're going to burst into play. With Nova, we're going to go ahead and start off with food chase games because I know a lot of you guys are going to have to use food. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So Nova's already on board. Notice how I don't have a treat pouch. I have it hidden on me. She's seen this enough times. She knows where it comes from now, but it's not that big of a deal, really. But not having an obvious visual, like a treat pouch or something, can be handy for this, although, like I said before, it's not entirely necessary. There's other ways to work around it. It's not that big a deal. But it is something that you probably at least practice a little bit. So let me show you what this looks like. So Nova has given me her attention. When she does, yes, marker, start doing some food chase games. Oh, good girl. Yeah. Good. Just like that. And shut it down. I'm sure you've noticed she has a long line on, just like from the first part. Now, this is not to control her. This is not to force her to interact with me. I still want her to make the decision to interact with me instead of the environment. But I will use the long line to block her from interacting and self-reinforcing on other distractions in the environment. Yes. Nova just kept her eye contact on me, which is fantastic. Didn't even pay any attention to Miss Bell over there. Yes. Good girl. Just play around the distraction. Now, what you really want to see is the dog notices the distraction. There's no way Nova doesn't notice her. Yes. She doesn't care. She just much rather interact with me because all of the practice we've done from step 1 of just conditioning her that her attention triggers this play and she gets food from it at that is something she would much rather do than interact with other dogs. Yes. That's all you're really looking for. This idea with whatever distractions. It can be other dogs, it can be toys, it can be people playing with toys, it can be other people just hanging out. The distraction, it doesn't matter what the distraction is. The idea is the exact same. Get around the distraction, wait for the dog to pay attention to you and not the distraction. Yes. Mark and reward them and play. Good girl. No commands. I'm not giving her any commands. I'm just rewarding her for paying attention to me. Miss Bell got a toy. Let's see if that makes Nova any more interested. Doesn't look like it. One thing you should know, and I'll cover this maybe again with another dog here in a bit, but your proximity, your distance from the distraction will play a huge role in your dog's ability to pay attention to you. So if you're working around a particularly high value distraction or a very severe or difficult distraction, you may be better off, or you will be better off, I should say, starting further away from that thing, practicing from a distance, and then gradually getting closer and closer as the dog learns that their attention on you gets the play and they never really get to interact with that thing. So for Nova, other dogs have never been a huge distraction for her. It's more toys and other people playing with toys and that sort of thing that really pulls her off, or makes things more difficult, I should say. Yes. So this isn't entirely challenging for her, and she has had a lot of practice in her life. So yes. But this is where you want to start, is with a low value distraction for your dog, ideally. Now, if you don't really have that luxury of setting up distractions in your training area or whatever, and you just need to go out into the real world, you can do that. But what you're going to need to do is use distance more. You're going to have to start further away from things, and very gradually over days, weeks, maybe months, just depends on your dog, get closer to those things until eventually you're as close as you care to be to those things, and the dog could care less. They just want to interact with you instead. So that's what it looks like with food. It's pretty simple stuff. To do this with fetch, it's the same exact thing. The only difference is it's with a ball. Now, of course, you have to teach your dog to fetch first. And teaching your dog to fetch is a pretty simple process. I have a video on it. I'll put the thing up somewhere for you to click on. But there's really only two things your dog has to have in order to do this, or in order to use fetch effectively in this context or in any sort of training context. And that is, the dog should bring the toy back to you. You know, they don't run off with it. They want to play with you with the toy. And they should let go of it when you ask them to. Nova, out. Nova, out. Let me look like a fool out here. Yes, girl. Out. Yes. Whether it's on command or just like a routine you've built of driving it into you and letting go. Yes. Whatever. The dog just needs to let go of the toy so you can continue the game. Okay. Good girl. Now, one thing to keep in mind with fetch, especially if you're going out and about into public places with this, is you have to be especially aware of your surroundings if you use fetch, because it's not uncommon that you toss the ball and the dog bites a little fast and it shoots the ball off wherever. And if you're around something dangerous that could potentially injure or kill your dog, like traffic or something, that could be really bad. So if you use fetch, be especially aware of your surroundings. Of course, use a long line in public settings so you can stop your dog. Ideally, have them on a harness for this. So if you have to step on the leash in like an emergency situation like that, they will catch the brunt of that energy in their chest and not their neck, and potentially avoiding an injury that way. So you can use fetch. There's just a few precautions you need to take. And when you do fetch, likely, it depends on your environment, of course, but more than likely, you are not going to be able to get away with long throws. I mean, I'm sure you can in some situations. More often than not, it's going to look about what you're seeing right here, or it's just short tosses, maybe like little skips here and there, but that's about it. Out. But the idea is now the exact same. You may hold the line, drop the line, doesn't matter. Move up closer to the distraction for Nova's sake, because this is too easy for her. Just paying attention to me. Doesn't give a single shit about Belle. Yes, marker, play. That's the idea. Good girl. Come here. Good girl. And then stop playing, put the toy away. Grab the leash if you want. You don't have to, you can just step on it, but it's all whatever. Ride up on the dogs. Nova doesn't care. Give me her attention. Hey, good girl. You want to play? Yes. Marker, play. All right. Doesn't matter what the play item is, fetch, tug, or food. Same idea. Doesn't matter what the distraction is. Start further away and then get closer to it over time. Ideally, start with lower value distractions at first and then build into higher value distractions. But that's not entirely necessary if you can get far enough away from whatever distraction you're working with. One more time for good measure. Yes. Good girl. So if y'all recall, in the first part, I went over a method where you just reward the dog for paying attention to you. It's not so much about interaction and play. You're just letting the reinforcement of receiving the food be enough. And this works really well for food-motivated dogs. Good. So if you have an extremely food-motivated dog, this is what you can do. You don't have to run around, do all the play interaction stuff, although I do encourage that if the dog likes to play at all, because play will step everything up several notches, and that intensity is what will carry you through distracting environments later on. Good. But if you have a very food-motivated dog, simply doing something like this is all that's needed a lot of times. Striker's doing pretty good. Good. Now this may look pretty easy to Striker. He has done this a lot. I've worked this with him quite a bit. Good. Actually, when he first got here, he had gotten in trouble for killing somebody else's dog. That's how dog reactive he was. Good. And he's not so much anymore, and this is part of the reason why, is starting off with this sort of drill. Good. And also, he's a little bit older now, so the edge is worn off a little bit. But even so, this is what I worked with him. This is how I got him to not care so much about other dogs, not to react so hard. And his saving grace there was how food motivated he is because he's as food motivated as he is. It was pretty straightforward to carry him through that without having to use hardly any punishment. I don't know if I used, I think, very little even in the process, but it was very much reinforced. Good. To just check in with me. So you see, he looked at the dog, didn't care, checked in with me. Good. Same idea. Different dog, different place, different reward. Same idea. Good. And posturing a little bit. Good. Then he cut it off. Cut it out. He's like, oh wait, this is the trigger. This means I can get my food. Good. Just many repetitions of this helped him not see other dogs as a problem as much anyway. Good. Good. When I first did this, of course, I started very far away. Good. Good. And got closer over time. All right. So next up, I've got Baron here, who is an absolute nutcase for his Kong on a rope. That's what I'm going to use. Got the same distraction, other dogs. And other dogs tend to get his attention a little bit easier than they do Nova, that's for sure. But as you can see, he doesn't care, which is exactly what you want to see. Yes! Mark him, reward him, and play. Now we're just playing tug. Hey, boy. Hey, boy. Baron, out. Yes. Good boy. Baron, out. Now, for the sake of the video, I'm pretty close to these distractions even starting out. What you may have to do, what you Maybe that was right. I'm an idiot. I'm a bit of an idiot when it comes to words. What you may have to do is start really far away from the distraction. So, 100 yards or so. It doesn't really matter how far away, just far enough away that the dog will start paying attention to you. Yes. Baron over here staring into my soul, so Mark can reward him and play. Good boy. Yeah, that's a good boy. Good boy. Just like the fetch, 2 rules. Dog will bring the toy back to you and play with you, not run off with it. And then also let go when you ask him to. Baron, out. Put the toy away. Once again, not using the leash to control his engagement, just to block him from self-reinforcing. So if he were to run over and try to interact with Belle, I would just try to step on the leash and block him, but not force him to interact with me. Let him make the decision to interact with me on his own. Which is what he's doing right now. Yes. Boom. Replay. Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. And that's it. So there you have it. That's the idea. Now, if you haven't pieced it together yet, good boy. Yes. You gotta be sure to reinforce that. He thought about going over there because she has a toy, and he stopped himself, came back, so I have to reinforce that. So give me a second. Now, this is what you want to see. Now, if you haven't pieced it together yet, as I was saying, what happens eventually as you go around town, going out and about into different places, practicing this, literally going out into new places, playing with your dog, rewarding them with play for interacting with you and not the environment, you'll notice that the distractions themselves start to become the trigger for the play. And once you can see in your dog that they notice a distraction, but instead of going for the distraction, they turn to you, they really got it. That's the whole point of this drill, of this engagement training, is to teach them that their opportunity to play with us, it starts with noticing a distraction, or even ignoring a distraction, being aware of a distraction but still choosing us, right? Yes. Oh yeah, there you go. Good boy. Engagement is really important. I mentioned this at the beginning of the first video, but one of the bigger reasons is because you have to have the dog's attention before you can teach them anything. It's just like trying to teach even humans something. If you're spacing out, if you're bored, spacing out, looking out a window or checking your phone or something, and I'm trying to teach you, you ain't gonna learn nothing. Well, same way with the dogs. If you're out and about trying to get your dog to practice some commands, or even at home, if you're just trying to get them to do some commands and they could care less about you or what you stand for, you're never going to be able to teach them anything. Not through positive reinforcement anyway. And that's why there are some trainers out there that do like the whole aversion style of training, because it skips the whole process of having to build engagement. It's kind of a lazy way of training, in my opinion. If you want to train with positive reinforcement, first you have to have the dog's attention. And he is obnoxious with his attention. I'd much rather a dog be like this than not care about me at all. If you do not have their focus, if you can't get their attention, yes, then you have to force them to pay attention to you. And forced interaction is never genuine, and it's never good, in my opinion. Really, it doesn't matter if it's canine or human. You want the dog to want to interact with you, and this is how you do that. Just imagine how easy it would be, or how easy it's going to be, to teach him things now that he's this locked in on me. Luring, shaping, whatever I want to do to teach him behaviors is going to be much, much easier now than if I had never done engagement to begin with. Not only that, if you practice this in many different locations, around many different distractions, you'll have a dog that's very attentive to you, seemingly on their own. And you're going to have a much easier time controlling them in public places and so on. So engagement is really important for a ton of different things. If you have any questions, ask in the comments. Good luck with your training, and I'll see you in the next one. Yes. Good boy.